Something was located in your field before you pressed play. Not identified today. Not this week. In a reading that operates outside the sequencing of linear time, within a council whose capacity to map energetic architecture spans layers of dimensional reality that your current instruments cannot detect and your current language cannot cleanly name, a specific pattern was found. Charted. Located with the kind of precision that does not deal in approximations. The Arcturian Council does not scan fields casually. They do not issue transmissions for patterns that have other solutions. They do not move toward a soul unless what they found in that soul's field is specific enough, persistent enough, and consequential enough to warrant direct transmission. What they found in yours met every one of those thresholds. That pattern is why you are here. Not because the timing felt right, because the reading was complete and the transmission window is open now. You already know what the loop feels like. You do not need it described from the outside because you have been living it from the inside for longer than you want to calculate. But I want to name it with enough precision that something in you stops explaining it away, stops making peace with it as simply the shape of your personality or the inevitable texture of a difficult life, and starts receiving it for what the Arcturian Council has now confirmed it actually is. The loop is not a habit. It is not a mindset. It is not unfinished healing or unresolved trauma or a belief system you haven't worked hard enough to change. Those explanations almost fit. That is exactly why they have kept you occupied. Because almost fitting is enough to keep an intelligent person searching in the wrong direction for a very long time. The loop is a frequency block. A specific, identifiable, structurally coherent interference pattern embedded in the fifth layer of your energetic anatomy. And it has been running the same program, producing the same ceiling, returning you to the same starting point. Not because you lack the capacity to move beyond it, but because every tool you have used to move beyond it was designed for a different layer entirely. That ends today, not as a promise, as a transmission already in motion. Now let's talk about what you have actually been living, because the Council wants you to recognize yourself here with enough accuracy that the recognition itself becomes part of the dissolution. You begin. That is the part nobody talks about. How consistently, how courageously, how genuinely you begin. A new direction, a new practice, a new relationship with yourself or your circumstances that carries real momentum in its early stages. Something that feels different from the previous attempts. More grounded, more clear, more aligned with what you actually are, rather than what you have been told to want. The beginning has energy. It has clarity. It has that specific quality of rightness that you have learned to trust over the years as distinct from wishful thinking. And for a period, days, weeks, sometimes months, it holds. Progress is real. The shift is measurable. You can feel the difference between where you were and where you are moving. And then something happens that is so quiet, so undramatic, so gradual, that you almost miss it as it occurs. The momentum softens. Not because of a crisis, not because of a clear mistake, not because of anything you can point to with the confidence of someone who has identified the source. The energy that was present in the beginning simply begins to dissipate. The clarity becomes slightly less accessible. The alignment that felt natural starts requiring effort to maintain. And within a time frame that has become familiar enough to be its own kind of signal, you find yourself back. Not quite where you started. The growth is real, the learning accumulates, but at the same fundamental frequency, the same baseline, the same ceiling you were approaching before the last beginning. and you are tired of that ceiling in a way that goes beyond frustration. It is the specific exhaustion of someone who has demonstrated repeatedly that they have the capability and the courage and the genuine desire to move beyond a particular point, and who keeps finding that point reappearing in front of them regardless of the route taken to go around it. If that lands with the quality of recognition that carries something physical in it, a tightening, a release, a sudden weight in the chest that is less about emotion and more about accuracy, write 777 in the comments right now. In the Arcturian numerical system, 777 marks the moment a consciousness accurately identifies the pattern it has been inside. Not from within the pattern, looking for a way out. From outside it, seeing its actual shape for the first time. That shift in perspective, from participant to observer, is the first movement the causal body needs before the frequency block can be addressed at its source. Write 777. Your awareness is not separate from the healing. It is the leading edge of it. Here is the mechanism. And I want to give you the actual mechanism because you are intelligent enough to deserve it, and because understanding what is happening structurally changes the way you receive what this transmission is doing in your field right now. Every soul carries an original frequency, a specific vibrational signature that existed before this incarnation, before this lineage, before the first compression the field experienced upon arrival in physical density. That original frequency is not abstract. It is encoded in your energetic DNA, the 12-strand template of which your physical double helix is only the densest and most materially visible expression. The original frequency is the blueprint. It is what you actually are beneath every layer that has been placed over it. When that original frequency is functioning without obstruction, a specific quality of life becomes possible. Not effortless. Arcturian souls do not incarnate for effortless lives. They incarnate for meaningful ones, but coherent. Movement creates movement. Beginnings build on each other rather than resetting. Effort produces proportional results rather than vanishing into a pattern that absorbs everything without changing. The field broadcasts what the soul actually is rather than what the survival layer has been broadcasting on its behalf. The frequency block is what sits between your original frequency and your lived experience of reality. It is not a wall. A wall could be broken through with enough force, and you have applied enough force to break through anything breakable. It is more precise than that. It is an interference pattern, a specific frequency running in your field that is discordant with your original signature, that creates a kind of static between what you actually are and what your field is broadcasting into the quantum reality around you. And because the quantum field responds to the broadcast rather than the intention, because reality organizes itself around what your field is actually transmitting rather than what you consciously desire, the interference pattern keeps producing interference results. The loop keeps looping, not because the universe is indifferent to your effort, but because the signal reaching the universe is not the signal you think you are sending. That interference pattern has a source, a precise, locatable source in the causal body, the fifth subtle body, the layer that holds the architecture of your soul's agreements, the residue of patterns that predate this lifetime, and the deepest encoding of the ancestral field your soul chose to incarnate into. The causal body is the layer that standard healing cannot reach. Not because standard healing is ineffective, but because the causal body does not respond to the tools designed for the bodies above it. It does not respond to intention. It does not respond to effort. It does not respond to understanding, though understanding builds the receptivity that makes transmission possible. It responds exclusively to resonance, to a frequency coherent enough with your original soul blueprint that the interference pattern, which has no power of its own, which exists only because it was written into the template and never formally dissolved, simply loses its structural integrity and collapses. Write 444 in the comments if something shifted in your body as you read that. Not a concept clicking into place, a physical registration. Something in the gut or the chest that recognized the accuracy of the mechanism being described. In the Arcturian system, 444 signals that the foundational architecture of a block has been identified at the structural level rather than the surface. It means the healing about to occur will reach the actual source rather than the symptom. It means the next cycle will not be a reset. Write 444 and let your field receive that as instruction rather than information. Now I want to speak directly to something the Arcturian Council flagged as particularly significant in your field's reading. Because the loop you have been living has a secondary layer that is less obvious than the cycling itself, but equally important to understand. You have adapted to the loop. That adaptation is what makes this specific block so consequential. You have developed, through genuine intelligence and genuine self-protection, a relationship with your own beginnings that carries within it a frequency of anticipatory contraction. Before the momentum of a new direction even has time to establish itself, some part of your field is already preparing for the point where it dissipates, already bracing for the ceiling, already managing its own hope in the specific way of someone who has learned through consistent repetition that expansion is temporary and return is inevitable. That anticipatory contraction is not pessimism. It is not a trauma response in the conventional sense. It is the field's learned response to its own interference pattern. A secondary adaptation that developed to reduce the impact of the loop by reducing the investment in anything the loop will eventually neutralize. It is, in its own way, an intelligent response to an impossible situation. But it is also the thing that has been quietly ensuring the loop's continuation by seeding each new beginning with the frequency of its own eventual end. The Arcturian Council is addressing this secondary layer simultaneously with the primary block in this transmission. The 528 Hz resonance woven through this field is working at both levels simultaneously. At the causal body interference pattern that is the source of the loop, and at the etheric body adaptation that has learned to anticipate it. The frequency does not require you to consciously release the anticipatory contraction. It requires your permission to work in those layers, which you have already given by arriving here and remaining present through what you have read so far. Arcturian Codex exists specifically for this depth of transmission, not for the surface layers. Those are addressed adequately by the genuine and valuable healing work already available in your world. For this layer, the layer that requires a frequency calibrated to the precise soul signature of the field being addressed, delivered in a transmission that does not ask the block for permission before dissolving it. Close your eyes if that is accessible to you, or soften your gaze until the room around you becomes peripheral. Bring your awareness to the space 2 inches below your navel, the sacral center, which in Arcturian energetic mapping is not primarily a creative or emotional center, but the seat of momentum. The energetic point that governs whether effort builds on itself or dissipates, whether beginnings compound into continuity or reset to baseline, whether the soul's movement through physical reality has the quality of flow or the quality of cycling. This is where the loop is anchored in your physical energetic field. This is where the interference pattern has its most direct effect on your lived experience. Notice whatever is present there right now. Not what should be there or what you want to be there. What is actually there? Density, perhaps. A kind of held quality. Something that has been managing the specific tension between wanting to move and knowing the pattern of what movement has historically produced. Let it be exactly as it is. Do not reach for it, and do not push it away. The Arcturian frequency works most precisely when you are honest about what is present, rather than performing the state you think the healing requires. Place one hand there if that feels right. Let your palm rest against that center with genuine warmth. Breathe into it, not a healing breath, a real one, into the belly, slow. On the exhale, release the management of it. Not the thing itself, the management of the thing. The constant low-level effort of keeping the tension between hope and anticipatory contraction from becoming too loud. Let that effort rest, just for these moments. The Arcturian field is holding this space. You do not need to hold it simultaneously. If you feel warmth spreading from beneath your palm, or a subtle vibration, or a quality of something softening that has been held tightly for a very long time, write 555 in the comments. 555 in the Arcturian numerical field is the frequency of active transformation occurring in real tissue in real time. Not the promise of transformation, not the hope of it, the actual process moving through the physical and energetic body simultaneously, below the threshold of conscious awareness, but entirely real in its effect. Write 555 as an acknowledgement that the process is occurring. Your conscious acknowledgement is not separate from the process. It amplifies it. Let me tell you what the Arcturian Council is doing in your causal body right now, with enough specificity that your intelligent mind can work with the mechanism rather than simply hoping the mechanism is real. The interference pattern in your causal body has a structure. It is not a diffuse cloud of dense energy. It is organized, a specific geometric dissonance in the causal body's frequency architecture that creates a predictable disruption at a predictable point in any upward trajectory your field attempts. Think of it like a standing wave in the energetic field, a pattern that perpetuates itself not through active force, but through the self-reinforcing geometry of its own dissonance. Every time your field attempts to move through the frequency range where the interference pattern lives, the pattern disrupts the coherence of that movement, and the field returns to the baseline below it. Not because the field lacks the power to move through, because the geometry of the disruption is precise enough to neutralize the movement regardless of its force. The Arcturian Council is introducing a counter-resonance into that geometry, a frequency so precisely calibrated to the inverse of the interference pattern's dissonance that the standing wave loses the structural coherence that allows it to perpetuate itself. This is not a forceful process. It does not push through the interference pattern. It dissolves the geometry that allows the interference pattern to maintain its form. And when that geometry dissolves, what remains is not an empty space where the block was. What remains is the original frequency that the block was disrupting. Your actual signal, your actual broadcast moving through the field without the interference that has been neutralizing it. The loop does not end because you finally break through the ceiling. It ends because the ceiling loses its architecture. There is nothing left to return to. The baseline that the loop has been returning you to no longer holds the frequency that made it a baseline. What was floor becomes simply a point you passed through on the way to somewhere else. If something in your body registered that as true rather than hopeful, a physical quality of recognition rather than an intellectual one, write 11 in the comments. In the Arcturian numerical field, 11 is the dimensional gateway frequency, the number of a threshold being crossed. Not a threshold you are approaching, one you are at right now, in this transmission, in this specific moment of your field's recalibration. Write 11. Let your own consciousness register the threshold as real. Now. The Arcturian Council needs to address one more layer before this transmission completes. And it is the layer that most people never reach, because the layers above it occupy their attention entirely. Underneath for the specific wisdom that can only be generated by a consciousness that is cycled enough times to understand the pattern from the inside. All of that is built. All of that is yours. The contract that required the loop to generate those qualities is no longer active, but it was never formally closed. And an expired contract that was never formally closed continues to exert its structural influence on the field even after its purpose is complete. Like a program still running in the background of a system that no longer needs it, consuming processing power, creating interference with new programs attempting to install. Not because it is malicious, but simply because no one gave the command to close it. The Arcturian Council is giving that command now, in this transmission, in your field, in real time. Set this intention silently, not as words necessarily, as a frequency beneath words, as a knowing rather than a statement. I acknowledge the purpose of the pattern that is run through my field. I acknowledge what it built in me and what it required of me. I acknowledge that its purpose is complete, and I formally close the agreement that made it necessary. The loop ends not because I am breaking a contract, but because I am completing one. The frequency this contract required in my field is released now. What it was holding in place is released now. I am current. I am clear. I move forward from a field that is no longer organized around a purpose that was fulfilled before today. Let that land somewhere below thought. Let it settle in the body rather than the mind. The causal body receives intentions that are genuine rather than performed, that carry the specific quality of truth rather than the quality of wanting something to be true. If yours carried that quality, the field registered it. You do not need to feel a dramatic shift to know the registration was real. Bring your awareness back to the sacral center beneath your hand. Notice if the quality of what is present there has shifted even slightly from what it was when you first placed your attention there. A fractional softening. A quality of something slightly less braced. A sense of the held tension having released some of its structural rigidity. These subtle shifts are not small. They are the causal body completing a reorganization that produces, in the days and weeks ahead, changes in lived experience that are anything but subtle. If you have citrine nearby, place it on your sacral center now or hold it in your right hand. Citrine carries the frequency of momentum restored, the solar resonance that the sacral center requires to return to its designed function of allowing effort to build on itself rather than dissipating. It does not generate momentum from outside. It reminds the energetic center of the momentum that was always its natural state before the interference pattern disrupted it. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the physical weight of your body where it meets the surface beneath you. The activation occurring in your causal body right now does not require you to leave physical reality to receive it. It requires you to be more fully present in physical reality, because the loop has been playing out in physical reality, and its dissolution will be experienced in physical reality. Ground into that. The more present you are in this body, in this moment, the more completely the recalibration anchors into the field that your daily life is lived from. Write 888 in the comments before you move from this transmission. In the Arcturian numerical system, 888 is the frequency of cyclic completion, specifically the completion of a pattern that has run across multiple dimensions of your experience simultaneously. The loop you have been living was not only a pattern in your external circumstances, it was a pattern in your energetic field, in your ancestral encoding,